At 6:42 a.m., on a cold November morning, the hallway of Building C at the Marlowe Heights apartments smelled faintly of burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. It was the kind of place where mornings were predictable. Doors opened at the same times, people left for work in the same routines, and nothing ever really happened. Until apartment 3C, the first person to notice something was wrong wasn't police. It was Mrs. Donnelly from 3B. She'd lived in the building for 12 years and prided herself on knowing everyone's schedule, who worked nights, who had kids, who forgot their laundry too long in the shared machines. And she knew one thing for certain. Emily Carter never missed work. Not once in 3 years. So when Emily's alarm began ringing at 6:00 a.m., loud enough to be heard through the thin apartment walls, Mrs. Donnelly didn't think much of it at first. But when it kept ringing, and ringing, and ringing, for 40 straight minutes, she stepped into the hallway and knocked on Emily's door. "Emily," she called gently. "You okay in there, honey?" No answer, just the faint, repetitive buzzes of the alarm still going off inside. Mrs. Donnelly knocked harder. Nothing. She pressed her ear to the door. That's when she noticed something strange. Silence. Not the normal quiet of someone sleeping. The apartment felt empty, like no one was there at all. Her stomach tightened. She tried the doorknob, locked, deadbolt engaged. From the inside, she stepped back, uneasy now, and pulled out her phone. By 7:05 a.m., building management had arrived. By 7:18, they called the police. Officer Trevor Mills was the first to respond. He'd handled plenty of wellness checks before. Elderly residents, forgotten stoves. Someone passed out after a night of drinking. He expected this to be routine. It wasn't. Standing outside apartment 3C, he could still hear the alarm droning inside. The property manager handed him a master key. "It's definitely locked from the inside," the manager said nervously. "No one's seen her since yesterday afternoon." Mills knocked firmly. "Emily Carter, Police Department. If you're inside, please respond." Nothing, just the relentless buzz. He exchanged a glance with his partner, then unlocked the door. The knob turned, but the door didn't open. Mills frowned. "Deadbolt," he muttered. That meant one thing. Someone had to be inside to lock it. Or had been. "Step back," he told everyone. He forced the door. The deadbolt splintered with a sharp crack, and the door swung inward. The apartment was still, immaculately still. The alarm clock on the bedside table continued to blare, but the bed was perfectly made, pillows aligned, blanket smooth, like no one had slept in it at all. Mills stepped slowly into the room. "Emily," he called. His voice sounded too loud in the quiet. The living room looked normal. Laptop closed on the coffee table. A mug in the sink. Shoes by the door, no signs of struggle. No overturned furniture. No broken glass. Nothing. Except one thing. Her purse sat neatly on the kitchen counter. Phone inside. Wallet inside. Keys inside. Everything a person would need if they planned to leave. But she hadn't taken any of it. Mills felt a faint chill run through him. People didn't vanish without their phone. They didn't walk out without their keys. And they definitely didn't lock the deadbolt behind them. He turned to his partner. "Check the windows." Every single one was locked. From the inside, even the small bathroom window, barely wide enough for a child, had its latch firmly secured. There was no fire escape, no balcony, no back entrance, no way out. Mills stood in the center of the apartment, slowly turning in a circle. It felt wrong. Not just empty. Wrong, like the space itself knew something didn't add up. "Time of last contact?" he asked. His partner checked his notes. Her boss said she left work at 5:12 p.m. yesterday. Security cameras show her entering the building at 5:38. Mills nodded. And after that, nothing. The building had no interior cameras. No one had seen her leave. No one had heard anything unusual. Which meant one thing. Emily Carter had walked into her apartment the previous evening, closed the door, locked it from the inside, and then disappeared. Mills walked back toward the bedroom. That's when he noticed something small on the nightstand beside the alarm clock. A folded sticky note. He picked it up carefully. 3 words were written in neat blue ink. Not rushed, not shaky, just deliberate. "Don't open it." Mills frowned. "Open what?" he murmured. That's when his partner called from the closet. "Hey, you need to see this." Mills stepped over quickly. The closet door was open. Inside, everything looked normal at first glance. Neatly hung clothes, shoes lined below. But on the floor, in the very back corner, was a square outline cut into the carpet, and inside that square, a wooden panel. with a small, recessed metal handle, like a hidden hatch. Mills stared at it for a long moment. Because whatever that hatch led to, it hadn't been mentioned in the apartment blueprints, and judging by the dust around its edges, it hadn't been opened in a very long time, until recently. For a few seconds, neither officer moved. The closet felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier, like they had just uncovered something that wasn't meant to be seen. Officer Mills crouched slowly, studying the wooden panel set into the floor. It looked old, not rotting, not damaged, but worn in a way that suggested it had existed long before Emily Carter ever moved into apartment 3C. He ran his fingers along the edges. Fine dust had settled into the seams of the carpet around it, except for one narrow section near the handle. That area was clean, recently disturbed. Someone opened this, Mills said quietly. His partner, Officer Lacey Nguyen, nodded. Question is when and why. Mills hesitated for only a moment before gripping the recessed metal handle. It felt cold against his palm. He pulled. At first, the panel resisted, stuck slightly from years of disuse. Then it lifted with a dry creak, peeling up like the lid of an old trunk. A dark opening yawned beneath. Both officers instinctively stepped back. Mills flicked on his flashlight and aimed the beam inside. The light revealed a narrow crawlspace, maybe 3 feet deep, running horizontally beneath the floorboards. It wasn't a basement, more like an access tunnel, the kind used decades ago in older buildings for plumbing or wiring. The wood framing looked original to the building's construction. But something inside didn't look old at all. There were fresh scuff marks on the wooden beams, and something else. Near the edge of the opening sat a faint smear of dirt, not dust, not debris, dirt like soil tracked in from outside. Mills' jaw tightened. Emily didn't just vanish, he muttered. Someone came in through here. Nguyen frowned. But where would it lead? This is a third-floor unit. That's what we're about to find out. Within 20 minutes, additional officers and a crime scene team arrived. The building's maintenance supervisor, a nervous man named Carl Brenner, stood in the hallway wringing his hands. There's no way that's supposed to be there. He kept insisting. I've worked here 12 years. I've never seen anything like that. Detective Hannah Ruiz arrived shortly after. She stepped into the apartment with the quiet confidence of someone used to walking into bad situations. What do we have? She asked. Mills gestured toward the bedroom. You're not gonna like it. Ruiz knelt beside the open hatch and shined her own flashlight inside. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened immediately. Anyone gone in yet? No, Mills replied. We waited. Good. She leaned closer, studying the crawlspace carefully. The wooden beams showed scratches, not random ones, but consistent patterns. Something heavy had been dragged through recently. She noticed something else too, a thin strand of long blonde hair caught on a splintered nail head. Emily Carter had blonde hair. Ruiz stood slowly. She went down there, she said. Nguyen blinked. You think she crawled in herself? Ruiz didn't answer right away. Instead, she pointed toward the dirt smear. Look at that. That's not apartment dust. That's outside soil, clay-based. Probably from ground level. Mills frowned. But how would someone climb 3 floors through a crawlspace? Ruiz's voice lowered. They wouldn't climb down from here. She paused. They'd climb up. By early afternoon, building blueprints had been pulled from city records. They were old, dating back to the 1970s, but they revealed something crucial. A vertical maintenance shaft ran inside the building's walls, originally designed for electrical and plumbing access. It connected every floor, including the basement. Ruiz stared at the diagrams for a long moment. If someone knew this building well, she said quietly, they could move between units without ever using a hallway. Mills felt a cold weight settle in his chest, meaning someone could have been inside these walls, watching residents, whenever they wanted. Ruiz nodded. And they could enter an apartment from below. Silence filled the room, and Nguyen broke it first. But why Emily? Why her apartment? Ruiz flipped through Emily's background file. Single, 29 years old, worked as a paralegal at a mid-sized law firm. No criminal record, no known threats, no obvious enemies, at least on paper. Then Ruiz stopped at a small detail in the file. A recent note from Emily's employer. She'd requested time off the previous week. Reason listed. Personal safety concerns. Ruiz's eyes narrowed. She knew something was wrong, she murmured. Mills leaned forward. What kind of concerns? Ruiz read the attached statement. Emily had reported hearing scratching sounds inside her bedroom walls at night. At first, she thought it was rats. Maintenance had inspected and found nothing, but then she started noticing other things. Small items slightly moved, her closet door sometimes open when she was certain she'd closed it. Once, she even told a coworker she thought someone had been inside her apartment while she was at work. Nagayan swallowed. Did anyone take her seriously? Ruiz shook her head. Everyone assumed she was stressed. She closed the file slowly. Last night, Ruiz said, voice tight. Someone didn't just enter this apartment. Her gaze drifted toward the open hatch. They came from inside the walls. And they took Emily Carter with them. By sunset, the Marlow Heights apartments no longer felt like a normal residential building. Police tape stretched across the entrance. Patrol units lined the curb. Residents stood in tight clusters outside, whispering nervously, watching officers move in and out of the lobby. Inside, Detective Ruiz stood near the basement access room, studying the vertical maintenance shaft, revealed in the building's blueprints. The entrance was hidden behind an old metal utility door, marked AURAZONELONLY. Carl Brenner, the maintenance supervisor, fumbled with a ring of keys beside her. I swear, he said for the 5th time, voice shaking, I've never seen anyone use this in years. We handle repairs from inside the units now. Nobody goes through here. The lock clicked open. The door creaked inward. A stale, damp smell poured out immediately. Ruiz stepped forward and shined her flashlight inside. The shaft was narrow, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through, with old metal ladder rungs bolted vertically along one side. Dust coated everything except, not all of it. Several ladder rungs were clean, recently used. Ruiz felt a slow chill creep up her spine. Someone's been moving through here, she said quietly. Officer Mills leaned closer. Recently, she nodded. Very recently. Crime scene technicians began photographing and collecting evidence inside the shaft. Within minutes, they found the first major clue. Near the 3rd floor ladder section, the level aligned with Emily's apartment, a small piece of fabric snagged on a bolt. Ruiz examined it under a flashlight. It was part of a dark hoodie. Not old, not worn, freshly torn. She bagged it carefully. That's not Emily's, Mills said. No, Ruiz agreed. Which means whoever took her got stuck here at some point. They continued downward. About halfway between the 2nd floor and the basement, Ruiz's flashlight caught something else. Scratches. Deep, frantic gouges carved into the metal wall. Not from tools, from fingernails. They ran vertically, as if someone had been dragged downward while clawing desperately for grip. Ruiz felt her throat tighten. She fought, she murmured. Mills swallowed, and she lost. At the bottom of the shaft, the ladder ended at a small concrete chamber, connected to the basement utility corridor. This space wasn't part of normal building access. It was older, original construction, forgotten, and it had been used recently. The floor was marked with dirt footprints, multiple sets, overlapping and chaotic. One set was smaller, barefoot, likely Emily's. The others were larger, boot prints, heavy tread. Ruiz crouched beside them, studying the pattern. There was something strange about the spacing. They're uneven, she said slowly. Mills frowned. What do you mean? Look at the stride length, she pointed. These prints don't match a normal walking pattern. They're staggered. Mills stared at the evidence. Then realization hit him. They weren't walking normally. Ruiz nodded. They were dragging someone. Silence filled the chamber. The weight of that truth pressed down heavily. Emily hadn't climbed into the shaft voluntarily. She'd been taken. At the far end of the small chamber sat an old steel door. Unlike the others in the building, this one had no label, no markings, no handle on the outside, only a small sliding peephole panel. Ruiz approached slowly. The metal was cold, worn smooth by time, but the latch, it looked new, recently replaced. Mills felt his pulse quicken. Why would someone update the lock on a door nobody's supposed to use? Ruiz didn't answer. She simply reached out and slid the peephole open. Inside, darkness. But something else too. A smell. Faint, sore human. She stepped back immediately. Get this opened, she ordered quietly. It took 10 minutes to force the lock. When the door finally swung open, a stale rush of trapped air filled the chamber. Ruiz's flashlight beam cut into the darkness, revealing a small hidden room. Bare concrete walls, no windows, no ventilation, and signs of someone living there. A thin mattress on the floor. Empty food containers stacked in the corner. Bottles of water. Battery packs. Extension cords running into the wall. Mills stared in disbelief. Someone was staying down here. Ruiz moved slowly inside. Her flashlight passed over a folding chair positioned directly beneath a vent opening. The vent faced upward, toward the apartments above. A listening position. She felt a deep, sickening realization settle in her chest. Whoever lived here hadn't just used the shaft to move. They'd been watching, listening, studying residents for months, maybe years, learning routines, choosing targets. Her beam moved to the far wall and stopped because scratched into the concrete were dozens of dates, organized in neat vertical lines, each followed by a small checkmark, like a list being tracked. Except one. At the bottom, the most recent date, yesterday's. It didn't have a checkmark. Instead, next to it, someone had carved a single word, taken. For a long moment, no one in the hidden room spoke. Detective Ruiz stared at the word carved into the concrete, taken, feeling a slow, heavy pressure settle into her chest. The letters weren't scratched in panic. They were deliberate, deep, controlled, like someone documenting progress. Officer Mills stepped closer, his voice low. "This isn't random?" Ruiz shook her head slightly. "No, this is organized." She ran her flashlight across the wall again. The dates went back nearly 3 years. Every few weeks, sometimes months apart. Each one marked with a check, except the last, yesterday's date. Next to it, the only word instead of a check mark. Taken. Nangayan swallowed. "Are we looking at multiple victims?" Ruiz didn't answer immediately, because something else had caught her attention. Near the bottom corner of the wall, beneath the older dates, there were faint indentations, outlines of previous carvings that had been scraped away, as if someone had removed older names or markings, trying to erase a history. "Someone's been cleaning this record," Ruiz said quietly. "Editing it." Mills frowned. "Why would they do that?" Ruiz turned slowly, scanning the room again. "That depends," she said, "on who they were hiding it from." Forensics began processing the hidden room. Within the hour, they found fingerprints, lots of them, but most belonged to the same person. And they weren't trying to hide them. They were everywhere. On food containers, on battery packs, on the folding chair, on the inside of the steel door. Like whoever lived there had never expected the room to be discovered. Ruiz stared at the preliminary results when they came in. Her stomach tightened, because the prints matched someone already in the system. Not a criminal, not a registered offender, but someone connected to the building, very closely. Later that evening, Ruiz stood in the management office across from Carl Brenner. He looked exhausted, pale, and deeply shaken. "Carl," she said calmly, "how long have you worked here?" 12 years, he replied quietly. "Before that, I did maintenance at another property downtown." She nodded. "And during your time here, did anyone else have access to the utility shaft keys?" Carl hesitated, then nodded slowly. "My assistant, Kevin." Ruiz leaned forward slightly. "Full name?" "Kevin Rowe." Mills pulled up a photo on his tablet. A thin man in his mid-30s. Quiet expression. Clean cut. Unremarkable. "Where is he now?" Ruiz asked. Carl swallowed. "Hey, he hasn't come in today." Silence filled the room. "Last time you saw him," Mills pressed. Carl rubbed his forehead. "Yesterday afternoon. He left early. Said he wasn't feeling well." Ruiz's voice hardened. "Did he ever mention going into the maintenance shafts?" Carl shook his head quickly. "No. Those haven't been used in years." Ruiz studied him carefully. "Then how did his fingerprints end up covering a hidden room inside one?" Carl's face drained of color. I don't know." But Ruiz could see it, the realization dawning behind his eyes. The kind that only comes when you suddenly connect years of small, ignored details. Kevin working late hours. Kevin insisting on handling certain repairs alone. Kevin always knowing which tenants were home and which weren't. Carl's voice dropped to a whisper. "Oh God." 2 hours later, police tracked Kevin Rowe's home address, a small rental house just 2 miles away. The lights were off when officers arrived. No car in the driveway, but the front door wasn't locked. Inside, the house felt eerily similar to the hidden room beneath the apartment building. Minimal furniture, bare walls, neat, controlled, and filled with evidence. Not chaos, not violence, planning. Detailed maps of the Marlow Heights apartments hung on one wall, with units marked in different colors. Schedules written beside them. Work hours. Typical routines. Lights, out times. Ruiz stared at the board, her chest tightening. "He's been studying them like prey," she said quietly. Mills nodded grimly. Then his flashlight moved to something else. Pinned near the center of the board, A photograph. Emily Carter. Taken recently, probably without her knowledge, but that wasn't the worst part. Below it were other photos. Different women, different dates, each with a red X drawn across the corner. Ruiz felt her pulse quicken. Those matched the dates in the hidden room, she whispered, which meant one terrifying truth. Emily wasn't the first. She was just the latest. But the biggest shock came moments later, when a guy called from the back bedroom. "You need to see this." Ruiz entered and froze, because inside the closet sat a large industrial storage trunk, unlocked, its lid slightly open. Inside were several sealed plastic evidence bags, carefully labeled, each containing small personal items, jewelry, driver's licenses, phones, souvenirs from victims, but one bag sat separately at the top, unsealed. Inside it was Emily Carter's phone, still powered on, screen cracked slightly. Ruiz picked it up carefully. The last notification on the screen made her stomach drop, because it was time stamped from just 30 minutes earlier. A message. Not from Kevin, not from any contact, just a single line typed into the phone's notes app, as if someone had forced Emily to write it. She had written it while he watched. 3 words. "I'm still here." By the time the story hit the national news cycle, most people thought they already understood it. Young woman disappears from a locked apartment in Portland. No forced entry. No clear suspect. A strange maintenance worker with a questionable past. And an ex-boyfriend who couldn't keep his story straight. To the public, it looked like one of those mysteries that would eventually fade into the background. Another cold case filed under Unsolved. Another face that would linger in documentaries and Reddit threads. But inside the Portland Police Bureau, Detective Mara Collins knew something the public didn't, and it kept her awake at night. Because 6 weeks after Lena Brooks vanished, something happened that didn't fit any theory. It started with the storage unit, the one Lena had secretly rented under a different name. For weeks, investigators had treated it as a dead lead. Inside, they'd found only ordinary items: old textbooks, winter clothes, a broken floor lamp, and 3 plastic bins full of paperwork. Nothing violent, nothing threatening, nothing that explained why someone would disappear, until a junior evidence tech noticed something strange while cataloging the bins. The paperwork wasn't random. It was organized, painfully organized. Inside one folder were printed emails between Lena and a housing rights organization. In another were city maintenance records. Another held tenant complaints from multiple buildings, all owned by the same property management company. But the last folder was different. It contained photographs, dozens of them, all taken from a distance, all showing the same man, Marcus Hale, the maintenance worker. In some photos he was entering buildings. In others he was sitting in his truck. In one he appeared to be arguing with someone in a parking lot. Each photo had a date and time handwritten in black ink. And every date matched days when Lena had reported hearing someone outside her apartment. The realization hit Mara like a punch. Lena hadn't just been scared. She'd been building a case against him. When detectives re-examined Marcus Hale's background, they found something that had slipped through earlier checks. 10 years earlier, in another state, he'd been investigated in connection with a missing tenant. No charges were filed. The case went nowhere, but the pattern felt disturbingly familiar. When confronted again, Marcus denied everything. He claimed Lena was paranoid, obsessive. Girl was always watching people. He told detectives calmly, she probably ran off. Wouldn't be surprised. But his composure cracked when investigators showed him one particular photograph. It was taken the night Lena disappeared. The timestamp read 1:43 a.m. In the photo, Marcus was standing outside Lena's building, looking directly up at her window and smiling. The problem was, his alibi said he was home asleep at that exact time. For the first time, his story collapsed. But even then, even with mounting suspicion, there was still no evidence tying him to Lena's disappearance. No body, no DNA, no sign of a struggle, just a locked apartment and a missing woman. The case reached a breaking point 3 months later. That's when a hiker discovered something deep in a wooded area outside the city. It wasn't a body, it wasn't clothing, it was a phone, old, damaged, but still recognizable. Lena's phone. Data recovery specialists managed to extract only one usable file. A voice recording. Timestamped 20:07 a.m., roughly 20 minutes after neighbors reported hearing the metallic thud from Lena's apartment. The recording began with heavy breathing, shaky footsteps. Then Lena's voice, whispering, terrified, I locked the door. I swear I locked it. How did he? Her voice cut off suddenly. There was a loud scraping sound, like something dragging across metal. Then silence. The file ended. No voices. No struggle. No explanation. And no way to determine where it had been recorded. To this day, the official case file remains open. Marcus Hale was never charged. There wasn't enough evidence. He eventually left Portland. No one knows where he is now. Lena Brooks was never found. But Detective Mara Collins keeps one detail pinned above her desk. The one thing that still doesn't make sense. When forensic teams re-examined Lena's apartment months later, using updated imaging technology, they discovered microscopic scrape marks on the inside of the bathroom vent. Marks that hadn't been visible before. Marks consistent with something being forced open from inside the apartment. Which means one thing still haunts everyone who worked the case. The door really had been locked from the inside, and somehow, Lena Brooks still vanished.